How's it going, folks? I have been off of social media recently. I've taken off of social media for Lent. So I have 40 days of no Twitter, and that has been very good. I also don't play games on my phone, and I've done a few things to try to observe this time. And I don't normally do that. I'm just a Chud Baptist, but it has been really good to be away from social media. God just, put it on my heart, kind of called me to do this. I had some friends who were doing it, and it has been really good. And I got to miss all of the chaos around Iran. Isn't that nice? So I don't have a video for us today based on news or Twitter posts, but I do have a video that I think is going to be interesting. This has been interesting to me. A friend shared this with me a couple days ago, and it's just been on my mind for the last few days. And I think it's worth talking about as we discuss recovering Christendom, building a Christian nation, and restoring what was lost in modernity, especially when it comes to masculinity, which, if you've been watching these videos, is an interest of mine. I am interested in the recovery of Christian masculinity. And to that effect, what I see here, what we have before us today, is the Code of a Gentleman. And this text was distributed to first-year cadets at the Virginia Military Institute from the 1920s until 1997. So we're going back to the 1920s today to see what were these first-year cadets at the Military Institute in Virginia told to do. What were they observing? You see, without a strict observance of the fundamental code of honor, no man, no matter how polished, can be considered a gentleman. Now, it's interesting, we already have the word man, so the cadets at the Institute are assumed to be male, which was taken for granted for 1920 until 1997 and many, 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 many years before that as well. Men wore military garb. Men became military officers. Women did not do that. This was a male role in society. This was a male world. And so therefore, every first-year cadet could be told how to follow the code of a gentleman. But more specifically here, we see the code of honor being mentioned. This is really what a gentleman means to the Virginia Military Institute. Following a code of honor is what makes you a gentleman, no matter how polished you are. So the honor of a gentleman demands the inviolability of his word and the incorruptibility of his principles. So really, honor is what we are talking about here. And honor is something I think that has been lost. Honor culture, a culture of honor. There's been people who've talked about it for my entire life, but it is pretty much gone. And I think if we walk through some of the points on this little list here for gentlemen, we could see how different the conception of honor was for the Virginia Military Institute and for the American society, for the American man back in the 1920s when this was originally written, even though it was continuously in use until 1997. First off, what is honor? The honor of a gentleman is the inviolability of his word. His word is unbroken. His word is set in stone. His word does not change. If he gives you his word, he will do it. He will do it. We used to see this with a handshake. If someone says they'll do something and they give you a handshake and they're a gentleman and they have honor, then they will do it. It's as good as a contract. That's gone. How's that working out in the year 2026? How often do you see men trusting each other based solely on their honor? It's a joke. It's a joke. But this is why I wanted to make this video. My soul longs for that kind of society, that kind of high trust society where you could trust a man based on the honor of his name, his reputation, his status as a gentleman, as a man, as a Christian in society. That is something that has been lost. Now it's almost degraded. It has degraded. It's almost become a joke. It's almost denigrated, is what I'm trying to say. We have almost now gone so far that we laugh at people like that as naive fools who would be stupid enough to trust someone else without a contract. Oh, you didn't get a contract? You didn't get it in writing? That's shame on you because you're an idiot. You need to get insurance. You need to get everything in writing. You need to write it all down and get it in writing, or else you're just being dumb. You're being a fool. And we were sold this based on pragmatism, but what we didn't realize was we were losing our culture of honor. Our culture of honor. Because if the world does not demand that you keep your word, then why keep your word? Right? If everything's going to be in a contract written down and punishable by law, then word doesn't mean anything. I don't care what you say. And what we see now is men everywhere saying things that doesn't matter. They don't care. They'll say whatever they want. They'll lie through their teeth. We have politicians, we have celebrities, influencers who lie constantly. We know they're lying. They know that we know that they're lying, and we know that they know that we know that they're lying, but they keep lying because it's all, who cares? Who cares? We'll just live this way, I guess, because there is no more honor in someone's word and the incorruptibility of his principles. Well, what principles? Well, that's what we're going to get into now. What principles? He is the descendant of the knight, the crusader. He is the defender of the defenseless and the champion of justice, or he is not a gentleman. So a gentleman used to mean something to the Virginia Military Institute. And just a quick shout out, I thought it was interesting they mentioned crusaders. So the crusader in 1920 was not considered a bad thing. You know, sometimes I feel like the recovery that we're trying to work right now in right-wing Christianity is going back hundreds and hundreds of years. You know, I think sometimes that America has been cucked for at least 100, probably 150 years. But look here, in the military in 1920, they were still venerating the crusader. The crusader was still a good thing for these people. So it actually hasn't been that long in America. Actually, up until 1997, they were venerating the crusader. So this is actually relatively recent that we have been taught and have learned to hate our history and hate our ancestry. It wasn't that long ago that the crusader was still considered a good thing. Okay, but let's look at what is a gentleman. What does this little tract say a gentleman is? It says, a gentleman does not discuss his family affairs in public or with acquaintances. A gentleman does not speak more than casually about his girlfriend. A gentleman does not go to a lady's house if he is affected by alcohol. Moreover, he is temperate in the use of alcohol. A gentleman does not lose his temper, nor exhibit anger, fear, hate, embarrassment, ardor, or hilarity in public. A gentleman does not hail a lady from a club window. I love that one. A gentleman never discusses the merits or demerits of a lady. A gentleman does not mention names exactly, as he avoids the mention of what things cost. Let's keep going. A gentleman does not borrow money from a friend, except in dire need. Money borrowed is a debt of honor and must be repaid as promptly as possible. There's that honor again. Money borrowed is a debt of honor and must be repaid as promptly as possible. Debts incurred by a deceased parent, brother, sister, or grown child are assumed by honorable men as a debt of honor. A gentleman does not display his wealth, money, or possessions. A gentleman does not put his manners on and off, whether in the club or in a ballroom. He treats people with courtesy, no matter what their social position may be. A gentleman does not slap strangers on the back, nor so much as lay a finger on a lady. A gentleman does not lick the boots of those above, nor kick the face of those below him on the social ladder. A gentleman does not take advantage of another's helplessness or ignorance and assumes that no gentleman will take advantage of him. A gentleman respects the reserves of others, but demands that others respect those which are his. A gentleman can become what he wills to be. Okay, that was the list back in the 1920s for what a gentleman is for these young cadets in the Virginia Military Institute. But I wanted to briefly look at this, and then I'll go back and look at the 1920s version. But look at this. This is the Code of a Cadet, the current iteration of the Code of a Cadet, as seen in the 2023 Rat Bible for first-year cadets. So this is what it looks like right now. This is what it was replaced with in the Virginia Military Institute today, as of 2023. A cadet's word is their bond. A cadet embodies integrity at all times. A cadet is a leader of character who offers equal respect, treatment, and understanding to all. First thing, we don't have men. This is no longer a male thing. This is, you see, nothing to do with a man. Nothing to do with a man. And I think eventually when we get to a pronoun, the pronoun is their. So we don't have a he or a she because obviously in 2023, the Virginia Military Institute lets women and men in to study as military officers. And here on the third one, we start seeing equal treatment for all being integrated here. The DEI, egalitarianism, is very clear. It's not just that now women are involved, but the entire principles that the cadet is supposed to stand by have changed into this more modern egalitarianism. Let's keep going. A cadet productively communicates, lives, and works with people from many backgrounds. See, there you go, right here. A cadet stands against intolerance, prejudice, discrimination, hate, and oppression. These words are just clear code for egalitarian DEI modernism, right? We've gone over like how a man should act and what a man should do, and more it's like you just have to hate discrimination and live with people from many backgrounds. Live in a multicultural, multiracial state or else. A cadet finds sacred duty to country, state, the core, family, and friends. A cadet embodies a philosophy of physical well-being. You know, like they didn't probably have to even put that in the original one because it was assumed if you were a military officer, you would have to be in good shape. But nowadays we have a lot of obesity even in the military, so they have to put that in there. Make sure you have your philosophy of physical well-being. Good manners, grace, proper humor, and humility are commonplace characteristics of a cadet. A cadet is appropriate in speech, habits, and dress. A cadet never takes counsel of their fears. A VMI cadet is a well-mannered, respectful, and properly presented individual who holds themselves, them again, and others accountable for their actions and words as a valued member of the Corps. VMI standards are high for a meaningful purpose to produce leaders of character. A cadet wears the VMI uniform with pride, always remembering and demonstrating what it means to be a VMI cadet. So here's what we have in 2023. This is it. It's all the talk about masculinity and gentlemanliness is totally gone, of course, because we have to make this applicable to women as well. But the ideas of honor are also gone. Remember, I was trying to point out that honor that we saw in the previous one, and it's just not even here anymore. We do have some similar things like you are appropriate, right? But what does that mean to be appropriate? Cadet is a leader of character. But what is the character? A cadet embodies integrity at all times. But integrity to what values? The first one is the only one that I really like. It's the original. A cadet's word is their bond. This is similar to the original. You have to keep to your word. I really like that. But the rest of it is kind of vague, you know, their integrity, their character, and then like what's the example of good character? It's just equal treatment to everybody, and you're against prejudice and discrimination and oppression. Now, hate and oppression, yeah, those are bad things, but when we have it tied in a list like intolerance, prejudice, discrimination, hate, and oppression, it pretty much all makes you think DEI, right? It's not. I mean, you could be generous with them and say that obviously there are some bad things. Each one of these you could frame as a bad thing, but if we compare it to what it was before and we understand the egalitarian world we're living in, you know that this is DEI basically. This is just not good. I think it's a downgrade, right? But I don't really care. The point of this video is going back to the original code of a gentleman. What have we lost, right? What have we lost? We've lost this idea of honor and of becoming a gentleman in the lineage of a knight and a crusader. There was this idea of Western men passed down for hundreds and thousands of years, and if you were going to be a man, a gentleman of honor, then you had to abide by high standards because that was your lineage. That was your context. You are an American, which comes from Europe, which comes from the Holy Roman Empire, which comes from King Arthur and the Crusaders and all of these really meaningful and powerful examples of men of courage and honor that are just totally thrown out because now we have complete global multicultural egalitarianism where a cadet is just anybody who, has high standards, who isn't fat, who keeps their word, which of course these are good things, but there's no context. And that matters to me because I'm a man and I feel this. I feel the lack of a role for me to step into. When I grow up and I become a man in 2026, I'm just as competitive in the market as anybody else. As another woman, as a foreigner, it doesn't matter. I'm just one of many. I'm just a cog in the machine. There is nothing that stands for me. I cannot become anything. I should just do the same thing everybody else is doing. I don't think that's good enough for men. I think most societies for all of human history had a special role for men to walk into, to stand up and take, to burden themselves with, to shoulder the responsibility of becoming a man. And this code of conduct that we see, it kind of reminds me of that. Like, here is a type of living that you should aspire to. If you want to be considered a gentleman, then don't talk about things in public. Private family affairs, don't talk about that stuff. Look how granular that is. Look how detailed that is compared to the kind of vagaries we saw in the 2023 version. Yeah, modernity sucks. Modernity is full of these motivational speeches and pep rallies that don't really mean anything. And back in the 1920s, especially in male masculine culture, they weren't afraid to say things that actually meant something, right? That they actually wanted you to follow. It wasn't just, be good, be a man of character. It was, do not discuss private family affairs in public. That's low class. That's trashy. Don't do that. Don't even speak more than casually about your girlfriend. Keep that out of the public. That's trashy, low, mean, crass behavior. Don't do it. Definitely don't go to a lady's house when you're drunk, and don't even get drunk. This is what gentlemen should do. Who even cares anymore, right? We see our leaders and our role models getting drunk and going and doing awful things all the time. All the time. How much... Remember, even when I was a kid, I remember when the tabloids were looked down on because the tabloids were, discussing private things in public. And that felt kind of low, right? That felt kind of low class. So people turned their nose up at the tabloids when they went to the grocery store because we knew, that's kind of trashy. That's everything now, right? That's everything. That is all over social media. It's all over the news. Everything, even like Trump's news often is just his private affairs getting blasted out everywhere. we've lost this completely, this culture of honor. And I think it's a real loss because men especially were supposed to live up to this standard, gentlemen, men of high class, and we don't even try. We don't even try anymore. I liked this one. Do not lose your temper. A gentleman does not lose his temper, nor even exhibit anger, fear, embarrassment, hate, ardor, or hilarity in public. So not only don't lose your temper, what that means is don't show any emotion, really. Don't get too emotional in public. Especially these last two are raising eyebrows for me. Ardor means romance. And we definitely threw this out the window with every 80s romance movie where we see the male protagonist goes and just swoons over the woman and stands outside of her window with the boombox playing her favorite song, and everybody goes, "Oh, isn't it so sweet?" And that's not the way a gentleman should act, according to the Virginia Military Institute in the 1920s. Maybe there are those who would call this too stuck up, too stiff. That's what the hippies said to their parents. But I miss it. I'm tired of the casual slop that we have instead. I'm tired of sweatpants and TikTok. I really miss a higher class of gentlemen and the opportunity to aspire to such heights. As a young man, to aspire to become a man like that. There isn't even a hope of that nowadays. There isn't even a goal. If we want that, we have to rebuild it from scratch. We have to rebuild all of this from scratch. Speaking of rebuilding from scratch, the gentleman does not hail a lady from a club window. This might even be hard for a modern person to understand, but a club here would be the gentleman's club. And no, that's not a strip club. That was where the men's club, where men could just hang out, smoke cigars, read books, read the newspaper, talk to people, play pool, and not be around women. This was very common. It was so common that it is referenced here without explanation in the Code of a Cadet in the Virginia Military Institute. There was just an assumption that men went to men's clubs because if you're a gentleman especially, you went to men's clubs because that's what gentlemen do. How many of those do we have left there, folks? How many of those do we have left in 2026? Not very many. Actually, none. Actually, it might be illegal in most places. It might be illegal for you to do it. The only ones I can really think of are video game communities because they're mostly male, even though there are women there, and they've all become super faggoty. They've gotten really, really faggoty. In fact, now it's all trooned out. You can barely go to one of these video game communities without finding at least a couple troons. So not exactly the gentleman's club that is, calling the men to a higher standard of honor. No, not even close. So I do miss that. I miss male-only spaces, especially high class or righteous or virtuous male-only spaces. This is what I hope that the church can bring, because churches are allowed to have men's ministries, are we not? Why don't we create men's ministries and ask our men to live up to a code of honor? That might, in some ways, honor our ancestors greater than we currently are. I wonder what they would think of us. Well, I hope that was helpful. This is just something I've been thinking through. There's lots of good thoughts to have through this code of a cadet here, the code of a gentleman, but just wanted to share the general outline of what was lost when we lost this culture of honor and this masculine role in society. And hopefully that will help you see what was lost, because I do think we need to build it back. We need to get it back. Our men need this. They need to aspire to something. They need a role that they can fill, that only they can fill, that only men can fill. They need the role of a gentleman or a knight or a crusader or even just a soldier in the army. If women can do all of those things, then there is nothing for us to do. And women don't seem to understand that there is something they can do that is just biologically built in. They can be mothers. they can have children. Men cannot do that. So if you strip away everything else that a man does in society and replaces that with women or AI, then there is no reason for the men anymore. And we feel it. We feel it in our hearts because we have nothing left for us to do. But we also feel it because there's nobody out there asking us to do anything. Not really. You know, maybe if like there's something heavy to be lifted, then they'll call the men, right? Hey, we need a bunch of guys out here to cut down some trees with their tractors. Okay, then we'll let the men do it, right? We need male bricklayers. But that's just basically slavery. You just want men for their brute manual labor. That is slavery. There is no honor in it. There is no respect in it. It's just, well, you're the strongest guy, so you get to do this. Now, to be honest, I want to throw out there is some respect in that. I do respect men who are strong and who work hard. There is honor in that. But the women don't have to feel that way. The society doesn't have to feel that way. They don't have to pay those people very much. They don't have to make statues of those people. Those people don't go on TV. Nobody cares about them until they need someone to fix their car, right? That's not good enough for all of the males of your society. That is not good enough. That is actually extremely hateful and disrespectful to treat men that way. And so I pray that Christianity can recover, especially Christianity. Let's start in the church, right? We should know this. We Christians should know this. It was a Christian America in the 1920s that created these principles of a gentleman here. It was Christian Europe that created the knight and the crusader. So we should know this. We should. We have lost it because we have bent Christian morals to modernity, to the society and the culture, but we can bend it back because we have a deeper alliance, a deeper allegiance. We have a deeper loyalty than loyalty to our culture. We have a loyalty to Christ. We have a loyalty to our Father who is unchanging, and his truth and goodness and beauty is the same now as it was in the 1920s. Maybe we don't build exactly what we had in the 1920s. It's never possible to go back. We have to go forward. But by examining this, I thought we can learn. We can see what was lost. And hopefully that stirred something in you. It stirred something in me. Let's go out and do what we can to rebuild and reclaim what was lost. In Jesus' name, amen.